Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Elena, and if you like anything related to fashion, reading, or just vlogs, you're in the right place and you should subscribe down below. I did a video like a few weeks ago that you should watch after this video, but it was my favorite books of all time. In today's video, I am discussing my least favorite books of all time. So for me, what constitutes a least favorite book of all time is just one that I could not stand reading, felt like I had to force myself to read, didn't like the plot or the characters or anything in the book. There was nothing redeeming about the storyline or the characters, and just overall, I would never recommend it as a book for anyone to read. Any of the books I mentioned, if they're some of your favorite books, don't take offense to this. It's just not my cup of tea. I'm discussing 11 books that are my least favorite of all time. So the very first book is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. The reason I actually ever picked up this book is because I am a fan of watching Steph Boyer's videos. She recommended this book and I saw how thick it was. I was like, you know what, this might be a really good read. I did not like it. I didn't like the characters, especially in this book. Especially the main character Knox. It was very much Grumpy Sunshine. The female lead, I didn't really get Sunshine vibes from. The main character Knox is like past Grumpy. I find him quite rude and aggressive for no reason. Very standoffish, not someone you really want to surround yourself by. There's nothing really redeeming about him to me personally. Grumpy for no reason. There's just a lot of aggression from the main character Knox, and the female main character is named Naomi. So another thing about the main character Knox in this book is he can't stand Naomi for reasons that are kind of out of her control, but he likes to make it a point that he can't stand her. Like, he's just saying it to her face constantly throughout the book, but yeah, he's always there for her. Like, he's always there as like the knight in shining armor. Like, she's in a rut and all of a sudden he's there. Like, a lot of the characters in this book were just kind of boring to me and there was nothing really interesting about them, whereas Knox just really annoyed me. That's why I didn't like him. And just for example, his big thing that he always has to state throughout the book is, I don't like drama, I hate drama. But he's always the one either causing the drama, or if there's any issues going on, he's making it worse. Also, it's very unnecessarily long. Like, the whole plot of this book, everything that happens is very dragged out. It does not need to be this long. It is 552 pages. I think this book could have been done in, like, honestly, no more than 300. So the next book is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I know this book gets recommended a lot, especially if you're like a STEM person. I am not. Maybe that could be part of the reason why I didn't like it, but I feel like there's certain things that they talk about that do relate to someone who may be a STEM major in one of those graduate programs. If you're not a STEM major and you read this, it wouldn't make a difference whether you are or not. This book was like not steamy at all. It's supposed to come off as steamy, but it's not steamy at all. There is one chapter, and I forget what chapter it is, one infamous chapter that people talk about in videos and on TikTok that is very steamy. Like, it's like, and I wouldn't even say it's like very steamy. I think it's just steamy for this book because it is so stagnant, the romance between the two main characters. Like, the romance doesn't really go anywhere for me between the two characters, and then there's this one chapter that hits you. Nothing happens again. It goes like stagnant up for one chapter and then back down and stagnant again. There's also like very random moments throughout all the chapters except for that one chapter where the author tries to create steaminess and romance between the two, and it just doesn't, kind of cringy to me. The plot of the book is Olive is trying to set her best friend up with this guy that she went on 2 dates with. She wasn't into, he wasn't into her. Her friend and this guy flirt a lot and are into each other. Olive has made it a point in the beginning to her best friend, like, I'm not into him, he's not into me. Start dating him, you obviously really like him. The best friend just like won't. The way the best friend was acting was like very childish about it instead of just being like, okay, cool. And so because of the way the best friend was acting, like, no, Olive devises this plan to make her best friend see her making out with her advisor. It's just really weird and childish. The next book in this video is The Shimmering State. I bought this book, had never seen it before. I saw the cover and I was like, oh, that looks cool. Because listen, sometimes we judge books by their covers. It's by Meredith Westgate. First off, I think maybe I didn't give this book enough go or enough effort in my reading. I feel like it just wasn't the right time for me to read it. Maybe I wasn't engaged. It was kind of boring to me, and I feel like the plot line of it all would be interesting. It's about this doctor who makes this drug that can help you forget the traumatic thing that happened to you. And it's not really dystopian, but to me it's kind of on the border of that. It still just feels like an invasion of the mind and the body, and I just didn't like that, even if it was consensual. Here is the part of this video where we discuss Colleen Hoover. I am going to say this now. I do not like Colleen Hoover at all. In order, I have read Verity, and I borrowed from my sister Ugly Love, and then November 9th. And I thought, well, let's try to give It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us a go. And I did do 2 videos that are private on my channel because I was trying very hard to be nice and try to like the books. And I feel like going back and seeing those videos, I was not, I almost would say I was lying. Like I was like, oh, I don't want like someone seeing this video who likes her and doesn't like what I say and says something back about my opinion. And it's like, you know what, that's what opinions are. People aren't gonna agree with them. I think it's unhealthy. It's not good. She's conveying a lot of bad things. She does romanticize abuse and toxic relationships. You may argue that in It Ends With Us and also the sequel It Starts With Us, she doesn't romanticize that because it is about a woman who gets out of an abusive relationship. But I think still at the end of the day, she does, through a lot of different chapters in the book and scenarios, does romanticize that abusive person to an extent. Also, It Ends With Us was inspired by her own mother's story of being in an abusive relationship with Colleen Hoover's father. And I just feel like my questions about that are like, is your mom still alive? If your mom is still alive, did she consent to you doing that? Are we sure you even did justice by your mother's story of doing it? You're kind of profiting off of your mother's story. A lot of people reading these are probably reading that, oh, this is romance, this is proper love, and it's not. It's not healthy relationships. It is not representation at all of how your significant other should act and treat you. Even some lines in her books, main male lead in Ugly Love and his teen girlfriend goes back a few years to when he was a teenager, and at the time his teen girlfriend, who was actually a stepsister. And then basically, and I'm not going to repeat the line, but there's this one line that they both say about their newborn son. So yes, they continue the relationship. Is this one line, him and his girlfriend slash stepsister say about their newborn son right before they get into a horrible car accident. But they basically are saying very weird and like borderline inappropriate things about their newborn son's, some of his body parts, private parts. A lot of scenarios that go on in the book are not necessary to the plot or the story. I don't even know how her mind thought of these things and said, yeah, I'm gonna put that in the book. That's good. One thing I've also noticed with reading her books is that there's just very weird relationships between siblings. Verity, main character Verity, she's an author. She's in a coma, supposedly. It's a whole thing. I'm not gonna even get into it. Some of the examples that the author tries to convey about Verity that should not be villainized. She doesn't bond right away with her twin daughters, and Colleen Hoover tries to villainize her for that. A lot of mothers don't bond with their newborns right away. A lot of mothers get postpartum depression. It's almost like she's trying to convey that if that's you, if you have postpartum depression, if you're having a hard time bonding with your newborn child, which happens, you're a villain, you're a bad person. And it's like, what kind of message are we sending here? In every single book, there is some type of abusive or toxic relationship going on. So again, I think her books can be quite a little dangerous to read. I think there's definitely some impressionable people out there who, if they get their hands on her books, can be swayed and can find themselves in, you know, toxic relationships and think that it's okay or that's romance based on just simply reading Colleen Hoover books. Just some people I want to shout out, like video creators, of their videos to watch that I think will really get someone a better sense of her writing and what she writes about, and I think would probably do a way better job explaining why she is a toxic author. Carly, Nicole Rafey, Elise, and then Caleb Joseph. And like the language and like phrases she uses and some of the lingo is very spot on to what I would find in a Wattpad story. If you watched my last video, or you saw how earlier I talked about how much I love Emily Henry, I love her in the sense that it's just easy and entertaining. Book Lovers by Emily Henry is on my list of some of my least favorite books of all time. So there was nothing really different with the formula compared to the other books. I didn't like the characters. Also, on top of the main characters, the secondary and sideline characters annoy me. They're both grumpy, so I didn't really like their characters. I didn't find them interesting to read about. I didn't think their romance really sparked any interest with me. Both very similar, so there was really nothing for them to bounce off of each other. And I really didn't like her sister Libby. I felt like she's very pushy. The second to last one is The Power of Scenery. This is about Frederick Law Olmsted and the origin of the national parks. So for someone like me who is so fascinated by the national parks and loves nature and loves being outside and hiking and all that fun stuff, you would think now this is the perfect book for Elena. Literally by chapter 2 I was already disappointed in it. It was definitely a lot to do with the author and the style of the writing. It felt very dragged on. It wasn't entertaining to the reader. It was just not, it's almost like the author didn't like what they were writing about. Like they were bored with what they were writing about. The wording and what the author is writing about and telling the reader should just be conveyed as more interesting and fascinating. Like it should be more excitement. And I did positive though, I did get a lot of great information about the national park system and its origins, a lot of things I actually didn't prior know. The last book in this video is Eleanor by David Michael Ellis. Prior to reading this might be one of the reasons why I don't like this book, but prior to reading this, I thought I liked Eleanor Roosevelt, ended up not liking Franklin Roosevelt anymore, or Eleanor Roosevelt. Lost a lot of respect for them for some things that they did and said. Now I will argue in her later life, I feel like when she got older, she became a better person and actually did positive things. In her early life, some of the things that she thought and said and did or actually didn't do maybe were very negative in my opinion. Another big thing about this book and this style of writing is it was very dragged on. Now I know that Eleanor Roosevelt had a lot of things going on in her life. There's just a lot of things I didn't need to know that weren't necessary for her story and what she did as a person. Now, it was informative, but I would say it was almost too informative in the sense that there were so many minuscule things that were not needed to be said. And I've read a lot of autobiographies and biographies that are historical, that are very entertaining, but I just feel like it all comes down to how the person writes about them and also keeping the important details in and the unimportant things out. That is why I did not like the book Eleanor. And that concludes this video. We are done discussing my least favorite books of all time. What I mentioned that I don't like, you may love. Not everything is going to be everyone's cup of tea. I will catch you in my next video. Bye.